You know that feeling, right? You're buried in work, you're ticking boxes, filling out forms, but there's this little voice in your head going, does any of this actually matter? Well, let me tell you, you are not alone. Today, we're giving that feeling a name. We're hunting for phantom controls.
So let's just cut right to it and ask the big question. Are your daily processes actually effective, or are they just a form of corporate theater? And look, that's a really critical distinction to make. That gap between just getting a task done and that task having a real impact, that's where things go wrong.
Okay, so here's our game plan for this explainer. First, we're going to pull back the curtain on this illusion of control. Then, we'll walk through a whole toolkit of red flags. We'll break them down by process, purpose, and design. And finally, we'll talk about how to go from just spotting problems to actually making things better.
All right, first things first, let's get one thing crystal clear. Just because a task is completed doesn't mean it was done well or that it even works. Ticking every box on a checklist, it's a trap, really. It creates this dangerous illusion that everything is fine, even when the process itself is totally broken.
And this right here, this is our map. Think of this as our guide for the journey. It lays out 7 super clear red flags that signal a weak control. We're going to use this to hunt down those pesky phantom processes, the ones that just eat up our time for no real reason.
So let's dive into our first category, red flags in the process itself. This is all about the how. It's about what people are actually doing, or maybe what they're not doing when they're supposed to be following the procedure.
And our first red flag is an absolute classic. I guarantee you've seen this one in the wild. We're calling it the rubber stamp. And it's exactly what it sounds like. It's all about getting a signature without any real attention.
So what's really going on here? Well, the approval is there on paper, right? But the actual scrutiny, the critical thinking, it's completely missing. Picture this. A manager, swamped with work, gets 100 notifications on a Friday afternoon. So they just batch approve every expense report under $50 without even opening one. The box is ticked, but the control, it's totally failed.
All right, next up, a red flag that this number says it all, 0. This is what happens when failure has absolutely 0 consequences. You end up with a system that has no teeth at all.
I mean, think about it. If you don't enforce a control, you're pretty much sending a memo that says, hey everyone, this is optional. Take that weekly security scan. If teams just skip it and nothing bad happens, no follow-up, no questions asked, why would they ever make it a priority? The company is basically just sitting on a ticking time bomb.
Okay, so we've talked about the process. Now, let's switch gears and talk about the purpose. Because a control is only as good as the why behind it. And when that why gets lost, the whole thing just becomes a hollow exercise.
And that brings us to our next sneaky red flag. I like to call this one the mystery task. This is when the person doing the job has absolutely no clue why they're doing it. They don't know who uses the information or what decision it's supposed to help make.
And you'd be shocked how often this happens. So you've got this employee, right? Every single day, they log why customers are calling into a spreadsheet. They do it perfectly. But here's the kicker. They have no idea that the product team uses that data to prioritize bug fixes. So they can't flag the urgent stuff. It just becomes a mindless data entry job instead of a vital feedback loop.
All right, now this next one is a close cousin to the mystery task. We've all been there. It's when something is created purely for show, or for the auditors only.
This is the ultimate battle of looking good versus being good. A team spends days making a risk register look absolutely perfect right before an audit. The spreadsheet is beautiful, the charts are crisp, but do they ever actually use it in their weekly meetings to manage risks? Nope, it's pure theater, a phantom control for an audience of one.
Okay, we're on to our last category of red flags, and this one's a big one: design. These are the controls that were honestly broken from the get-go. They never even stood a chance.
And kicking things off in this section is something I call the empty ritual. This is the very definition of just going through the motions. The task gets done, maybe even flawlessly, every single time, but it leads to absolutely nothing. No action, no improvement, no change.
The weekly status report. It's the perfect example of motion without progress. Everyone on the team spends 30 minutes carefully filling it out. It gets sent off to a manager, and then crickets. It just disappears into a digital black hole, never to be seen or acted upon again. It feels productive, but it's just a ritual.
Next up, we've got what I call the rear view mirror control. And it's exactly what it sounds like. It's a control that only gives you a good look at a problem long after you've already passed it and the damage is done.
Seriously, think about this for a second. A company only tests its data recovery plan after a massive server crash. That's completely backwards, right? A real control would be proactive. It would involve testing that backup every month to make sure it'll actually work before disaster strikes. This kind of control doesn't prevent failure, it just documents it.
And our final red flag, number 7, is just pure unnecessary redundancy. This is when you have multiple controls doing the exact same job. I mean, look at this. You have a team lead approve a tiny software request. Fine. But then the department head has to approve the exact same thing? Why? It adds no extra value, it just creates bottlenecks and frustrates everyone involved.
Okay, so we've laid out all 7 red flags. We've seen the problems. But, spotting them is only half the battle. Now we need to talk about how to actually fix them. The goal here isn't to just point fingers, it's to elevate the entire system. And really, if you remember one thing from all this, let it be this phrase right here. This whole diagnostic map, it's not a tool for blaming people or for conducting a witch hunt. It's a tool to start a smart conversation about making our work better, more efficient, and honestly, a lot more meaningful.
So, what can you actually do with this information, like tomorrow morning? Well, it really boils down to 3 simple steps. First, use this map to start spotting the red flags in your own work. Second, be the person who always asks, why? Dig for the real purpose of a task. And third, empower the people actually doing the work. Give them the context and the authority to fix or even just get rid of these phantom controls.
So I'm going to leave you with a question to chew on. Take a good, honest look at your own to-do list, your team's weekly reports, all those checklists. Which of those tasks are genuinely creating value and preventing risk, and which ones are just corporate theater? The answer might just change the way you work.